What's up, Creepers and Geekers? Chris, the Atari Creep. How is everyone doing today? As many of you guys know, my very first video game console was a Sears Tele-Games Video Arcade, a heavy sixer model. Now, how it came to be that we had that one instead of an actual Atari 2600, I really don't know. I honestly don't have any recollection of receiving it. Just as far as my memories are concerned, it was always in the house. To make a guess, the Atari 2600, or in this case, the Sears Tele-Games, was about $199. Translates to today's money, roughly about $800, maybe even a little bit more. And I know my folks didn't have that, but they did have a Sears charge card. So, in speculation, I can say that's probably how we ended up with it. Now, one of the biggest misconceptions out there about the Sears Tele-Games video arcades and subsequent units after that is that they are clones of Atari products, when that's not actually the case at all. In fact, internally, they're exactly the same. It's all just aesthetic changes. If you look at the Tele-Games console, or an Atari 2600 console, the shell itself is broken down into three pieces. You have your base, you have the lid, or the top shell, which will have a wood grain, and then there's a panel for the controls that pops out as well. And the only true differences between an Atari 2600 and a Sears Tele-Games Video Arcade are there on the top. Obviously, the wood grain is a little different. It's more of a burl style instead of a straight grain. Where the Atari badges now has the moniker of Video Arcade. And of course, the control panel, that little pop-out thing, is now a silver or chrome, depending on how you want to look at it. But internally, the guts are exactly the same. In fact, if you flip over the console, the label on the bottom, your information about the console, actually states manufactured by Atari for Sears and Roebuck. So what is the deal with the Tele-Game? So the conversation came up between me and a friend of mine, and I was explaining to him, how the whole Tele-Games thing kind of happened. I had a general knowledge of it. So after the conversation, I decided to look it up to find out more specifics, simply because I was more interested. And strange to find out, I can't find much out there at all. So I said, you know what, this would be a great topic for a Atari 101 style video. I haven't done one of those in a long time. So let's talk about Sears Tele-Games Atari products, how they came to be, and what actually they really are. So interestingly enough, Tele-Games as a brand starts off with Pong. Pong arcade cabinets start getting produced, and they take off. Arguably, probably the single cabinet that made popular the use of coin-op video games. And it was inevitable that it would eventually become part of the home consumer market. So Al Alicorn asked a gentleman named Bob Brown and Harold Lee to come up with a simplified version of Pong, something that would be cost-effective to put in the home of electronics consumers. So I don't really know the specs of the Pong cabinets, but it's my understanding that they were a real intricate circuitry of wires just meshed all over the place just to make the damn thing run. What those two gentlemen were able to do is put all that circuitry basically into a chip that we now affectionately call Pong on a chip. And interestingly enough, that chip itself actually became kind of a staple in consumer electronics for a number of years. So they were able to do it, and they came up with a cost-effective way to get Pong into their homes. So Nolan Bushnell, along with Gene Lipkin, I believe that's his name, starts selling the idea of Pong for the home out into the market. And they're not really getting much nibbles from anything. They did come across a gentleman named Tom Quinn. Again, I can't remember all these names. He was a representative for the sporting goods department of Sears and Roebuck. And they were able to strike up a deal, but Bushnell said, you know what, I think we might be able to do a little bit better, so they passed on it. So they decided to sell this at a toy fair that was being held in New York City of that year. And they really didn't get much as far as bites. It was a fail. So they opened up dialogue with Tom Quinn again, and they were able to come up with a deal that seemed beneficial for everybody involved. They were to produce 150,000 of these things for the holiday season. Now, Atari was only really capable of making about half that, but they were able to get an outside resource to assist them with that, and they were able to produce all the units. Now, Sears, being one of the largest retailers, we all remember Sears catalogs. If you're, a graybeard like me, they sold everything, and pretty much everything that you owned back then was from Sears catalogs. But they demanded that it be branded for them, so they came up with the name Tele-Games. Now, where it came from, I don't know. That's just the name they decided to slap onto it. And it was successful, very successful. So Atari also were producing their own units with the Atari brand on it. But once it became successful through Sears, other retailers were open to the idea of putting these things on the shelves. And shortly thereafter, of course, Pong clones started coming out, and Pong fatigue started happening. Now, fast forward to 1977, from 1975, when the Pong home units started coming out, Atari decides they're going to come up with their own interchangeable cartridge system, which eventually became the VCS/2600. Of course, having that deal with Sears, Sears was very interested in putting this on the market, but they had to have their own brands. Thus, the Sears Tele-Games Video Arcade is born, to be cliche about it. So, aside from my little stumbling on names and stuff, that's the basic idea of what happened. They just couldn't find anyone to distribute their idea. Sears was able to do it, but they said that you have to brand it as a Sears product. Now, going back to the differences between the Atari products and the Sears products, they are exactly the same, with the exception of the aesthetics of the consoles themselves. If you were to open them up and just look at the boards, there's honestly no difference. So you can interchange all of that crap. And if you really need to have the Atari version, just find one that doesn't work. If you have a Sears Tele-Games one, you can swap out the case and Bob's your uncle. Now, personally, I think the Tele-Games Video Arcade is a better looking unit than the actual original VCS. That's my personal thoughts. So, guys, I hope this was somewhat informative. Again, there's not a lot of information out there, and I'm hoping the information I was able to gather is accurate. And if it isn't, of course, comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. Which do you prefer? Do you prefer the actual Atari branded or the Sears Tele-Games branded consoles? Like I said, I prefer the Sears Tele-Games. Maybe that's more nostalgic because that's what I started off with, but I personally like that burled wood look versus the straight grain stuff that was on the actual Atari VCS. So guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. I hope everyone's doing well, and you're adjusting to this new school year should you have little ones and your schedules aren't too heavily abrupted. So go ahead and leave feedback, thumbs up, thumbs down. All feedback to me is positive. Thanks as always for watching. I can't say that enough. And guys, until next time, take care and bye-bye. Hey, what's up, folks? The Creep here. Thank you as always so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to subscribe for more. You can follow The Creep on social media, and feel free to reach out at any time here on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Creep would love to hear from you. And as always, thank you, take care, and bye-bye.